Welcome to the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast, bringing you bi-weekly discussions designed to help you grow your business and create the lifestyle you desire. Elevate your business with proven strategies from virtual CFOs, CPAs, and business advisors. We discuss real-world challenges solved with actionable steps that get you the results you need both in business and building the life you deserve.
So much for joining us. Welcome to episode number 155 of the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Megan Spicer, and today we are talking about the signs you're outgrowing your accountant. This is a guide to CFO and controller outsourcing services. So to help me dive into this and put your guide together, we have Jaime Staley, partner here. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks. I'm excited about this topic. I think we get this question a lot when talking with, prospective clients and other folks. So I think this will be a great episode.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in because it's a very common question and kind of some gray area, like we were talking about in our little green room before. It's not necessarily a black and white, like, oh, when this key thing happens, you're ready. Like there's some wiggle room a little bit there. So let's discuss some of the common challenges that business owners can face when it comes to accounting and setup and all the fun things that come along with that.
Of course. So I think when businesses start, right, they start small and they can kind of take on that accounting support themselves because there's not a lot going on. They're in a startup phase. They can manage the few items that are happening pretty simply. And so I think it's a challenge because when you start that way, you think you can always do it, right? And we also kind of have that, I can take care of these things. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard. It doesn't take me that long. All kinds of reasons you could still be doing it. And so I think part of the challenge is just knowing that when you're starting a business and if you have hopes to grow and scale that business, know that at points during that growth, you're going to need to bring more support on and you can't do it all. So I think starting with that mindset and knowing, hey, yeah, I'm going to start small. I've got 6 months to a year. It may just be me. But what are the things that are going to happen if you start growing and you do have to put a lot more time and effort to actually providing that service? What's going to happen to all these things? They're going to get shoved to the side because they're not that important. So I think starting out with that mindset of, hey, as I grow and scale, I need support to do that. Maybe I need an operations person to help me take care of the day-to-day things that I'm not going to have time for once I have to dedicate my time and effort to clients and that type of work. And so I think the same thing goes for accounting. Like, sure, at the very beginning, can you do it yourself? Yes, there's probably not much going on. I think it becomes difficult to know when that point is, right? Because you're scaling, you're like, well, it's still not that big. And so I think you just have to really be thinking about it mindfully on a regular basis. Hey, every quarter, thinking about, hey, are things changing? Do I need more support? Is my time being sucked up into things that, while important, maybe not the best use of your time as the business owner? So I think that's a really important thing and a challenge, right? Because we want to do it. We want to control. A lot of people have control issues sometimes. I don't trust this person to do it right. I have a way of doing it. But if you have a skill set and you're an expert at it, you should be focusing your time and effort there. I see too many business owners who are like very knowledgeable and skilled at their profession, but believe that they can just do the accounting too. And again, sure, they can do it, but there's somebody who knows how to do it quicker, more efficiently, has more knowledge, can give you more insight into some of those things. So you really want to
save you money in the long run.
Like a lot of people think of it, oh, I have to spend money on these services and they're expenses, but you really want to look at them as investments because if you can leverage these people to help you, then you get to grow and scale faster, doing the things you actually love and enjoy and not all the extras around that. So I think it's really valuable to bring in a virtual controller or CFO to help, partner with you. Maybe you're a solo business owner. You don't really get a lot of, outside input or thoughts on your opinions, or you're just making decisions. And sometimes that's great, but sometimes that can feel really lonely. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I'm making the right decision. So having somebody as a sounding board can be really valuable. Somebody who's done it before, who works with other business owners, has seen other challenges. Hey, have you considered this? What about, thinking through this? Typically these people aren't coming in to just say, yes, you're right. If that's the person
Right.
you want, this may not be the right fit for you. But if you really
Yeah.
want somebody who challenges you and says, well, maybe that's not the best way to spend money right now. What about this? You really need
Mhm.
to, consider it. And it doesn't mean you have to do those things, but having a different point of view is useful and beneficial. And just having
Right.
that sounding board, maybe somebody being like, yeah, that's brilliant. You need to do it. And that positive, wait, why am I waiting? Like having somebody kind of confirm what you think can be really beneficial for you. So also bringing in that financial expertise because, again, you're most likely not an accounting professional and don't have the years of experience. You're a professional at something else. And so bringing in that financial expertise to, again, have you look at things differently from a different perspective can really help you get a better understanding of your business. We work with our clients a lot to teach them about the financial side of things so that they're not just running their business. They're also learning more about a balance sheet. What is on, the profit and loss? What should I be concerned about? How should I look to the future? So, just having that additional expertise on your side can only really add value for you as you're growing.
Yeah. Well, and you have some kind of staggering numbers here too that can help better justify, I guess, the investment of having somebody that knows what you don't know, right? Because that's, I think, the danger that we all fall into is like, oh,
Right.
well, I'm managing it okay, but you don't know that there's this tax strategy out there, or that you should be setting aside money for taxes and you're going to owe this major tax bill, or, you don't have the 2020 vision yet because it hasn't happened. And these experts can help you see into the future and proactively manage these things to help avoid these failures or things that we hear about at staggering numbers with new business owners. Because I mean, it's scary and it's big and there's a lot of unknowns. And so we want to try to minimize those as much as we can,
Right.
right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, trying to get you away from some, of the scary statistics. So, one of them is that 21% of new businesses fail within the first year, and the number increases to 50% by the fifth year. So again, not having some of that background may be part of the reason you're failing. 82% of failed small businesses experience cash flow problems. That's the reason they're not successful. So as a numbers person and as a business owner, looking at your cash flow is really important. And it's something that gives a lot of people. I mean, I'm working with a new client now, and I'm like, let's look at the financials. She's like, I'm scared to look at this. I'm like, okay, first of all, we shouldn't be scared to look at it. Second of all, you
Yeah.
should already know what I'm going to tell you because you're
Yeah.
in the business. So you
Yeah.
need to take that fear away. Like, I think it's easy to just pull the wool over your eyes and be like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I don't really have to think about it. It'll all work out. It worked out in the past. Instead of taking control of your cash flow situation, getting the knowledge you need to understand what's happening, know what's coming, making plans for what happens if we don't have cash.
Yeah.
Those are very real things you need, especially if you have people on payroll. What's going to happen if you're having some cash flow problems and you can't meet payroll? Like that is a very scary thing. So
Mhm.
you really just not telling you this to freak you out and scare you, but to be prepared, right? These are
Right.
very common issues that isn't just you having to deal with it. Every small business owner is having issues with cash flow. And if it's not issues, it's planning. And as a small business owner for, 9 years at this point, there's times when cash flow is a constant. We're looking at it constantly, every day. Can we charge this? Can we put this on the credit card? Should we pay cash? And there's other moments where you're like, hey, things are rolling.
Good.
That's fine. I don't need to worry about it. But the thing about it is it fluctuates. So you need to be on it all the time because you don't
Yeah.
know if you're not looking at it, you don't know in 6 months you're going to have a cash flow problem and you need $50,000 to get you through a payroll. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be with no money in the bank and now frantically trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think,
shoot, that's next week. Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's a lot of people want to believe they can do it and they can, but you actually
Mhm.
have to be doing things to like get control over the things that are scary, hard, and you can do it and you can do it with support if this is not your, area of expertise. So that's, I think, the biggest takeaway is that we exist to try to help support business owners because we are business owners. We know the struggles, we know how hard it is, and you can do it. Like you can do it if you put, place plans in place to review it, control it, learn about it, ask questions. So I think the biggest takeaway is trying to just make people aware and be like, instead of tossing it to the side and say, I'm not going to worry about it, I'm sure cash flow will work itself out. Take an active role in how much cash do we have today? How much cash is going out the door this week? How much cash is coming in? Are we going to be good? So just looking
Yeah.
at it, asking questions and diving a little bit deeper. But I do think it's a lot easier when you have somebody who's done it, who can help walk you through it, who can assure you that you're not the only one and come
Yep.
up with the plans. Get that line of credit today. Maybe
Yep.
you never need it. That's great. But you have it there in case something happens and you need some extra money. Maybe there's a great investment opportunity for you. And hey, we can help you evaluate, is that a good time to draw from that line of credit? You can't meet payroll by $5,000, like not a lot, but and it's just a timing issue. We're expecting this, payment to come in soon but we got to pay payroll, just having that security of a backup plan instead
Yeah.
of just, oh, it'll be fine. Right. So
Yeah.
a lot of businesses, again, you're not alone if this is a struggle for you. It's why most businesses fail. So
Mhm.
I feel like it's really important to put plans in place so that that's not the reason, right? Maybe
Yeah.
there's a reason, but it's not the most common one. We're taking care of and thinking through that.
Yeah. And not letting that stop you, like the embarrassment maybe of maybe you don't
Yes.
know or you haven't asked that question because it is such a common thing that like
Hmm.
any CPA pretty much that you go
Hmm.
to or CFO or controller is just going to be like, okay, no big deal. Like,
Yeah.
let's move on because
I
I've
mean,
heard that
yeah,
a
I mean,
million
you
times.
can't be an expert at everything. And, we do talk to people who've been in business for 15 years and are like, I'm not really sure how this works, and
Yeah.
maybe you're really lucky and you had just really great cash flow and really, you were just making really great money. So
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about it. And that's great if that's working out for you. But you just don't know when that tide may turn. And so having that support and having that understanding and knowledge is really critical for the success of your business.
Agreed. So I want to back up a little bit and define the roles because I think for somebody that's not in the industry, it's easy to kind of see how these kind of meld together or not really know the differentiation between an accountant, a controller, and a CFO. So can you kind of break those down just high level for us so that we can better understand what those differences are and how they can help a business in different ways? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, so there's definitely different angles. You usually have an accountant. An accountant is a very general term. That person could be a bookkeeper, just somebody who's really data entry. They're adding your transactions for you, they're helping you code. And most bookkeepers and or accountants are really, I guess there's a little bit of a differentiation between those two because a bookkeeper may be an accountant and have accounting knowledge, but they also may just be data entry. So you really want to understand what type of level of an accountant do you have? Do you have a basic bookkeeper who's really just entering data for you, right? They're entering data, maybe they're doing some bank recs and credit card recs, and that's it. Typically, a higher level person would be an accountant because they either have accounting schooling and a degree in accounting, something like that. So they usually have a little bit more understanding of the accounting, right? The assets, the liabilities, debits and credits. Like that's something an accountant with accounting, experience and like I said, schooling would have more understanding of. Both of those types of people are still very probably at the basic level, right? They can understand things. They may look at your financials and review them. They may not. A lot of the bookkeepers that I've seen and work with, they're just kind of doing the job, right? They're getting the items in there. A lot of them are not taking the next step, which is typically where we have with our virtual controller or virtual CFO, who are taking the steps to evaluate and review the financials. So we're making sure somebody is doing all those other things. They're getting the transactions coded properly. They're getting bank recs done. We're getting everything complete and accurate. But we're taking that extra step to make sure that the financials look correct. We're looking at a balance sheet and asking questions. Typically within our firm, we're making sure there's a support item for all the things on your balance sheet. If you can't support it, if you don't have documentation for it, it really should not be on your balance sheet. So we try to question, hey, do you have some support for this? Oh, this is from a long time ago. It's not valid. Okay, well, we need to remove that from your balance sheet. So having those discussions again with the business owners is really important. So the controller level is usually a person who is kind of taking that next step where they're reviewing financials, asking questions. They're being a little bit more, what I would say, proactive, right? We're looking a little futuristic. So accountants, bookkeepers, they're typically trying to get the history correct, which is important. We need that data. A controller level is starting to look more proactively. How can we budget the next 6 months to a year? What are the decisions we can make based on what happened last month? Did we hit our targets? Did we not? So we're looking at budgeting, budget to actual review. So we're just taking it to another step of here's what happened, but like, what are we going to do with that information? We're going to take that information, we're going to have conversations, we're going to explain why things might happen. We may just ask questions, learn more, so that the business owner can then make some different decisions. Hey, we've, missed our budget the last 3 months. Why is that? Are there things we can change? Do we maybe need to reduce expenses because we're not bringing in as much income? Having discussions to make decisions to help you really, again, optimize your business, make sure you're making good decisions to move forward, and really kind of challenging the business owner a little bit to say, hey, these are what we're seeing. Here are some suggestions. How can you make changes to improve that? And or what adjustments do we need to make on the expense side so that the profit is not, getting overlooked or we're now having a loss. We don't want to have a loss for, too long of a time. Sometimes you do have those months, depending on what's going on, that is a loss, but you really want to be looking at this. So that controller person is going to be looking at it, having conversations with you. The virtual CFO person is doing a lot more strategy with you. They're probably starting at the beginning. What is the vision for your company? Where do you want to be in 5 years? How are we going to help you get there? Creating budgets. So it's very much a more strategic relationship. So, we're helping make you look at things in a different light. Again, challenging, asking more questions so that you can make different decisions moving forward. So, that's the difference, again, between like an accountant person, which are typically getting the work done, getting information entered, but a controller and a CFO are really taking it to a next level. We're evaluating it. What do we learn from this? How can we use this? How can we budget ahead? How can we plan for the next year, 2 years, 5 years? So really trying to use, more proactive angle and more strategy.
Yeah. And I like the breakdown of like it's just kind of it essentially boils down to a more reactive versus proactive, right? You're kind of shifting in a what is that? Like a spectrum. There's
Right.
like a
Yeah.
spectrum of reactive to proactive, and you can go anywhere in between those two. Um, so let's tackle some of the signs that you may be outgrowing your accountant because they think this is an important, there's maybe some red flags that might be popping up like, oh no, this has happened, or oh yeah, I recognize that in my own business, that maybe it is time that we start looking at integrating some higher level help with us.
Yeah, and before I dive into that, depending on what stage of your business is in, having a bookkeeper may be exactly what you need, right? Especially if you're in the early stages. That's like taking a little bit of the work off your plate, having somebody do it, having you ready for tax time when the year ends. That may be exactly what you need when you're just starting. You don't have a ton going on, but you have enough that you just don't want to do that, right? I know I have a lot
Yeah.
of people who are like, oh, I don't have time for that. It's accounting. I don't want to do it. I just need
Yeah.
somebody to help. So that might be the right first step for you. And then some other signs that you're outgrowing your account is just you're looking for more than just kind of getting that historical work done. You're looking for growth for your business, right? So you're planning to grow. You're doubling in size. You're adding more employees. You're just planning to scale in whatever way that means for you, but
Mhm.
growth is on the horizon. So those are times, again, when that partner sounding board can be really valuable as you're trying to grow. If you're having recurring cash flow issues, we talked about it a little earlier, cash flow is a huge problem for a lot of small businesses. If you're constantly dealing with cash flow issues and you can't focus on, providing that service or dedicating your time and brain space towards that because every week you're having a cash flow crisis and you're not sure how you're going to get through it, bringing in somebody to help you manage that now, while it's still hopefully a more minor problem where you can kind of get it under control, that would be a good time. A lot of people find the challenge, right? They're having cash flow problems. How do I pay for somebody? So there is
Yeah.
a little bit of a rub there. But, depending on your situation, maybe that cash flow problem is just something that comes up once a month and it's just a timing issue and you're not sure how to solve that problem. Somebody having you sit down and look at it and review it together can really help get you more information and feel better about that situation. So again, I think bringing that person in is an investment more so, right? So it just depends on where you're at. If you don't have the cash to pay somebody, again, you've got to lock in on that. That needs to be a daily task that you're looking at, managing, cutting expenses where you can. So if you really can't do that, then you have to take ownership of that. But if you're in a place where, hey, if I bring somebody in and get this peace of mind, then I don't have to worry about this constantly. And we can put this
Right.
behind us and like create a
Sleep at
plan.
night.
Yeah, I mean, the peace of mind, that you get from some of this, can really make a difference. And just worrying about it isn't really helping, right? You're stressing out. It's not really
Right.
solving anybody's problem. You're still having a cash flow problem tomorrow.
Yeah.
So is it worth paying someone to help you get that in control, knowing that you want to scale and grow?
Mhm.
Hopefully it is. And hopefully you have at least some money to kind of help invest in that.
Yep.
If you're missing opportunities to grow or you can't take advantage of them because you're not sure if you can afford it, you're not sure where to put your time and money and resources. Having again that other person to ask questions, talk through it, you know, from the financial perspective, you can understand, hey, I know it's a great business growth opportunity for me, for the company. Yes. Can we afford it? Is it going to put us in the hole for so long that it's really not that great of an opportunity, right? Like it could be.
Right.
What is that
Right.
return on investment? When are we going to see the uptick in sales? When does that happen? Is that in 2 months, 3 months, 8 months? It could still be worth it, but having somebody on your side to talk through the financial angle of it, either missed opportunities or opportunities that are popping up and you're not quite sure what you should do about them. You want to, because our business owners always are like, yes, 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 we want to grow, we're going to expand, we're going to do more. But you also
Hmm.
want to stop and evaluate from the financial perspective. Is this a good idea?
Yeah.
And then sometimes your financial needs become more complex. Maybe you are setting up a managed service organization. You are setting up something a little bit more complicated, which requires more accounting um, than you may even imagine at the beginning. But when we sign into different, more complex legal agreements, they typically require your financials to be set up in a certain way. Otherwise, for tax purposes, for legal purposes, they may not allow you to qualify as this set up entity or the setup structure that you've created. So we have a lot of folks in the past who are like, oh, I just want to set it up this way for tax purposes. But if you don't actually set your company up properly, actually live through that agreement, the IRS may say, no, while you said you have this document, you're not doing any of the things that you are required to. So we see this a lot. Some of our dental clients set up a DSO. They have a very complex arrangement. There's management fees that have to be paid back and forth. And it can get costly on the accounting side because it's a really important area that you have to do and you have to do it right. And
Hmm.
so, depending on those complex situations or setups or acquisitions you might have, you really got to make sure the accounting is correct for that so that you're upholding what you're supposed to be doing. You've got things represented properly on your balance sheet, financial statements overall, so that you don't get into trouble later that you're not doing what you said you were going to do and
Right.
it's not getting the benefits of those things. And so you
Right.
want to make sure, that's something that you're considering as you become more complex, having somebody on your side to help make sure that you're doing the accounting correctly and in alignment with that is important.
Yeah. So looking at all of these and realizing that these signs are probably manifesting themselves in ways that are really fun
Stress, most
in
likely.
business. What have you typically seen, and when do people typically make the move to bring on help?
Bringing on help, may start earlier. Bringing on help that's more in the virtual CFO and controller level is when they're wanting to grow, is when they have plans to grow. So sometimes we get people that are a little bit smaller. $1 million mark is usually when it starts to become worth the investment. You're big enough to have, you have employees. You just have a lot more complications that are starting to pop up that are not just I can manage that as the owner while I'm providing the service, while I'm doing all this stuff. There's a lot more becoming involved in getting the day-to-day done, especially on the
Mhm.
accounting side. So I think once the $1 million mark hits, you really want to start thinking about it if you're not. Some people like to do it before then, right? They're like planning ahead, like, hey, we're not quite there yet, but this is where we're tracking, and I want to start now. I want to start bringing in help, whether it's an operations person, whether it's an accounting person. Hey, I'm not ready for a virtual controller or CFO, but I'm going to bring in a CPA or an accountant person to help me because I don't really know accounting. And trying
Yeah.
to find, a valued partner from that perspective could be a step one if you're not, quite ready. And then you can start to learn things. So I think having that team is what's really important as a small business owner. Having somebody to have to answer accounting questions, tax questions, operations questions, maybe HR questions, right? Like there's a lot of complex situations that happen as you're growing that just don't manifest when you're so small because it's just you
Yeah.
and a couple people and it's really not that big of a deal and you can just handle it. But it gets more complicated, more stressful. I mean, I think the stress is usually the biggest sign. I don't want to deal with this. I can't handle this from the financial perspective. And I don't want to be the only one accountable for this because it's not my forte. So,
Yeah.
as you're growing and as that stress, you know, manifests, you want to try to say, hey, who can I bring in to help support me? What can make my life easier? And if I can bring it in a fractional way, you don't have to hire a full-time CFO. You don't have to, bring in a full-time operations person. Like you can have this support, a little bit of everything to try to complete that, grouping. So you're getting support from different angles. And that's going to help propel your business.
Awesome. All right. So once you make the decision to bring somebody in, and I want to address too that it doesn't have to be like we get rid of our accountant or bookkeeper and we have to make this big transition and because there's different ways of going about doing that too. So can we talk about that just a bit before we get into the next topic
Sure.
here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think people think, oh, I got to get rid of everybody I'm working with. I can assure you that most CFOs and controllers don't want to do the bookkeeping and accounting in the day to day. So they're
Yeah.
happy that you have somebody that they can rely on. And again, they can oversee their work a little bit more closely, maybe help them do a little bit better job, making sure they're a little bit more complete or more accurate because instead of just getting that accounting done, they're asking a few more questions. Hey, why is this not on the balance sheet? Hey, where's the support for this? So again, having more interactive discussion between the accounting folks that you have on your team is a good thing for you. So yeah, you do not need to get rid of the folks you're currently working with. If you have tax professionals that you are happy with, but you need this extra layer of somebody who I can talk to a little bit more regularly, can be involved in some of my decision making, that can really help you as well. So it is a collaborative effort. If everybody's collaborating in your best interests, then that's a good thing for you. So having that person too with the knowledge who understands what's going on is a really, good asset to have. If they're very good at what they're doing, then that helps. And then that controller or CFO can come in and really focus on higher level, proactive and strategic work.
And the outsourced controller and CFO, at least in our case, I've seen it where it's turns into like a professional growth opportunity for the bookkeeper maybe too, where they can learn some new things. So
Mhm.
you're also bolstering up your own internal team by them learning more about the financials and understanding better how the balance sheet works and why we do those things. And so I think it's just overall, like you said, a collaborative effort to kind of raise the
Mhm.
bar for everybody,
Yeah.
which is, I think, important to address. Um, so once you bring on or make the decision to bring on somebody that's at this higher level, a controller, a CFO, let's talk about some of the benefits that we might see in a growing business.
So I think the biggest benefit you're going to have right off the bat is just having that partner and person to lean into from the financial perspective. I think there's a lot of financial questions out there that sometimes aren't asked. Every time I'm like working with clients, every once in a while, can you just answer this random accounting question I have? I just had a brief meeting yesterday. So just having somebody that you can ask those questions to, I think from the beginning is going to be very valuable. And just having that proactive approach to your accounting, if that's not where you're at right now.
Mhm.
Typically a lot of current tax firms, they're getting your data, they're putting it in a system, they're spitting out a tax return. That's not really where we're at. Like we want to be looking at tax planning at least twice a year. We are not we aren't wanting to play the, guess what, you owe lots of money on April 1st. Sorry, didn't know,
Yeah.
didn't let you know. Sorry, you weren't
Don't want
aware.
to be that messenger.
You don't want to be that person. So you want to, again, we're trying to instill in our, in the folks that we're working with that it's important to be doing these things regularly. We need to be planning. Mid-year, we'll look at your financials. Hey, you're making a lot of money. Here's the, estimated tax payments that you should be making. Hey, November comes around. Oh, you actually paid in enough. Let's not put any more. Or hey, you had another killer quarter. You're going to need to put in a little bit more for tax purposes. So we try to have those conversations. Again, being proactive. We don't want to be the ones calling you up with a bad surprise related to taxes or any of that.
Yeah. No.
Another thing,
No.
especially we pride ourselves on, is the educational piece. So we want you to be not just relying on us for everything. We want you to be learning. We want you to take control of your financial, just the financial aspect of your business. You know what's going on. We're kind of helping you understand it from the financial perspective. But you should understand a balance sheet in a basic way. You should understand a profit and loss. You should understand your cash flow situation. You should be very close to your numbers as a business owner. And you are not, I don't expect or wouldn't expect a business owner to know it all or be able to explain it all. But like over time, when we sit down and have a monthly meeting with our clients, we're talking through the balance sheet. We're making them look at it. All of my clients, we start there. They don't want to look at it. They're not real interested. I make them interested because I try to explain if the balance sheet's all wrong, you don't even need to waste your time looking at your profit and loss statement because it's not accurate. So you can be real excited about all the numbers over there, but if we pull up that balance sheet and get negative numbers all over the place, your
Garbage
profit
in,
and loss
garbage out.
inaccurate. Correct. So we start with the balance sheet. I ask questions. I mean, I love when they start asking me, what is this? Great question. This is what I believe it is. Can you confirm that? Like, can we
Yeah.
make sure? I can still remember, I think one of my clients was like, what is this? This doesn't make sense. I don't think this should be on here. I'm like, great. Well, let me research this. Let's look into it. Oh no, it doesn't belong there anymore. That, went away over time and nobody brought it up. And I'm like, this is why we look every month. So we looked at it for many months. It was there. And then eventually we were like, oh, no, that doesn't belong there. So again,
Recognize
it's
things.
never going to be perfect. The goal isn't, perfection. The goal is, hey, is this accurate? Are we putting all the information here that we know? Are we updating it when things change? Okay, great. Now when we look at the profit and loss, it's giving us valuable information. Here's the revenue coming in. Here are the expenses going out. Here's what we're netting. Is this good? Is it not good? Let's compare that to budget. So just taking it to that next level of not just getting it done, and maybe looking at it in quick passing, but really looking at it. What is it telling us? What can we adjust going forward so that we can make improvements in our business?
And having that relationship with a partner who has expertise in something that maybe we have a knowledge gap in and can empower us as business owners to make better decisions. And, so that's huge because we can get all our data into QuickBooks, okay, that's
Right.
great. Fantastic. But that partnership and that relationship to be able to ask the questions that maybe we're embarrassed to ask other people or,
Mhm.
feel empowered by actually understanding and controlling our situations better, I think is huge. I mean, that matters leaps and bounds. So it's a great
Yes, I
point.
think the relationship and the collaboration is really important because there may not just be one business owner and one virtual CFO. Maybe there's, an operations director that has ideas. There's another, an HR person who has some input and they're like, okay, you guys are thinking of it from this perspective and the financial perspective, but what about the HR angle? Like just getting
Yep.
everybody talking. I feel like people worry, oh, we're not going to agree on things. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to agree on everything. And you shouldn't. You should encourage people to disagree with you. Why are they
Yep.
saying that? They're not there to be a pain, right? We're not bringing things up to
No.
be difficult. There might be bringing up hard truths that you need to look at and consider. And maybe you say, okay, you're right. I still want to do this, and this is why, and this is what we're going to do to combat that, or we're going to go slower. What can we learn from all the things that people are telling us and asking us and that. I
Mm.
mean, I feel like when you collaborate with many different people, you get the best solution, right? If
Yeah.
you're doing it by yourself, you might come up with a good idea, but maybe there's three ideas you didn't even consider that are better, like you never
Mhm.
would have known because
Yeah.
you didn't ask or you just didn't have that support system. So I definitely think, no matter what kind of business you're doing, having a group of support to lean on in some fashion is really going to be able to help your business.
Yeah. Agreed. And I mean, do you have any stories that you could share about, a past client that you worked with that was kind of went through this situation themselves, and we can kind of see the timeline or the story of like, oh, this is when they realized and here's how it helped. Because I think that always helps kind of tie things together too and make it more real for us as listeners to understand, oh, the impact.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with a lot of dental practices over the last 10 years or so. And one of the most impactful ones I worked with, we came in, the doctor was posting deposits himself. The bookkeeper was there with doing data entry. And there was three separate practices, and everything was coded to the same buckets. They
Mhm.
really didn't have a lot of insight. Was everything done? Yeah, everything was done. Bank recs, credit card, everything was being done. As we got in, we started to get a little bit more specific on how we coded things. So is it helpful when you have three dental practices to know how each of them are doing separately and quickly seeing that? They have some tools on the dental end to see a little bit about that, in each practice. But I was like looking at an actual financial statement to say, this is what the revenue is coming in. Here's the expenses. Are we profitable at all three? Like we're profitable in total. But what if one of them's not profitable? Like, then we can't make any changes, right? Like, we're just going to keep doing
Right,
what we're doing.
right.
So we went in and we started to class different practices so that we could track that separately. We could run a profit and loss statement by practice. So that was something they were not doing previously. We saved the time of the doctor who can bill out from $1,000 an hour to $1,200 an hour to $1,500 an hour, who was instead spending an hour a week, probably, maybe more, posting deposits into the system. He did an okay job. I would argue we did a much better job and we're much more efficient and got things in the right buckets a little bit better. And we saved him from having to do accounting, right? Like he can go
Yeah.
take another client every week if you want, or another patient and see another patient.
Mhm.
And so, we started to do monthly financial meetings. We started talking about those financial meetings. We started to realize one practice was not as profitable. I think everybody was profitable, but one was not as profitable. Why is that? Is the one practice taking too much expense? Just evaluating the things that are now we can look at, right? Like now we can say, hey, what's going on at this practice? They have a lot more people. Is that right? Maybe there's a need for it. You just have better discussions once you have the information. So we had a lot of better discussions around that. We had better data to look at, better questions to ask, better ability to make decisions for those practices in a separate manner than before. And so that
Mhm.
really helped um, to enable, again, better decision making and understanding in general. We also started budgeting with them from the beginning. So we started budgeting. The first year we budgeted, it went okay. Budgeting is, as I like to say, it's more of an art than a science. The first time everybody's like, what are we doing? What does this mean? What am I agreeing to? But over time, you really start to understand it better. The second year it goes better. Oh, I understand my budget. I'm trying to meet my budget. Here's what I've got to do. Oh, the
Mhm.
third year, let's get even better at predicting what our revenue is going to be, what our expenses are going to be. So people really start to learn over time
Mhm. Mhm.
on the budgeting side. So that became a much more efficient process, very useful, compare budget to actuals every month, gained a lot more understanding and insight. They were they became even more profitable than they were before we had kind of just one group of data. So we really were able to go in there, divvy up this information, make it more useful, be able to be proactive with it instead of, just looking at it. Yep, we know we're profitable. Great.
That's true. Let's move on.
It's
Yeah.
good. But we just got to get more granular and look at it in a little bit different light and then understand it more and then make a good decisions based off of that. So
Yeah.
that was a
Well, and
good
get more
experience.
strategic, understanding, hey, this practice is doing better here. Why? Let's take a look
Right.
at what we're
And there
different
could
doing
be reasons,
differently
right? I mean,
between.
you just don't
Mhm.
know. You have to dig into that. Like, what are the
Yeah.
reasons? Do we have
Right.
a higher profitability, or I'm sorry, higher productive doctor who's just bringing in so much money that like there's no way you can replicate that because they're very unique or they're just so high
Right.
producing. We can't find that. Like that's amazing. But
Specialty or
we've got to
yeah.
realize that's kind of an outlier. Just being able to have
Right.
more discussions about the
Explanation.
why is it happening, what is it, can we duplicate that, can we do this again, if
Yeah.
hey, we're being more efficient in processes and our payroll is lower over here, but we're not doing that at the second practice. Can we do some more
How do we do
training?
that?
Can we put more processes in place so that they're doing the same thing? So you have
Mhm.
more ability to kind of duplicate things that are working, move away from things that are not, and have a better impact on the bottom line.
Great. I think one of the last things that we wanted to tackle in this episode is addressing the fact that it is an investment, right? I mean, it's especially when you may be struggling with things like cash flow or maybe not understanding your budget and having a hard time making this decision on, can I make this investment? It can be a scary thing to pull the trigger and say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and bring on this controller. Let's go ahead and bring on this CFO when you don't have that visibility yet.
Yeah.
So how do you recommend business owners get past that when they kind of need a controller or a CFO to help them make the decision to bring on
Yeah.
a controller or a CFO? Like it's like
Yeah.
cart or the horse, which one? Chicken or
Right.
the
Yeah.
egg?
Well, going back to what I kind of said at the beginning is knowing when you're starting a business that if things are going well and you are growing, you are going to need people to help you. So
Mhm.
knowing, I think part of it is mindset, knowing that in the future, if things go as well as you hope, you're going to have to hire people to help you. And so I think
Right.
starting out from that perspective helps. I think one struggle a lot of folks have is, well, I haven't paid for it for this long. Why should I pay for it now? And so that's a
Yeah.
challenge, right? And I understand that perspective because they don't necessarily know that value, right? So if you don't
Right.
feel like you're going to get value from it, it's harder to spend more money if you don't think it's going to be an investment. So you
Mhm.
have to kind of reconcile that for yourself. Do you feel like you need support? Do you think and believe that this support is going to help you? We've seen it come to fruition, but we also have to work with the right types of people because if your perspective is I don't want to be paying for this, like it's not going to be a good relationship, right? Because it's
Yeah.
just too hard, right? Like they're never going to meet your expectations of that I shouldn't be paying. I don't want to
Yeah.
pay for this. This is too expensive from the get-go.
Right.
So I think those are, I mean, I think it's a common challenge. I think thinking and knowing you're going to need to hire someone, it's going to cost money and probably significant money.
Mhm.
CFOs, they can range from 200, 300, 400, $500,000 a year if you're hiring a full-time CFO. Most
Yeah.
small business owners do not need that, but you really can value from some of the expertise and some of the knowledge and information they can help provide you. So can you afford that on a smaller basis? Can you get somebody in there to help you grow and get to the next level? And so I think it is a challenge, and I think that it just has to be something you are convinced is going to bring you value. And it is truly an investment. That's how we see it. That's how we like to work with our partner or our clients. We want them to feel like it's valuable. And you have to be wanting these things, right? If you don't want someone to give you their opinion and you don't want to do those things ever, then this may not be the right angle for you. If you're coachable, if you're trying to grow and change and you really want to learn more of the financial angle of your business, not just the business itself, then I think this could be a really valuable tool to help you grow as a person, as a business owner, help your team. If you have a leadership team, they probably all don't have business acumen necessarily, and so giving them that additional resource and knowledge and education over time, I've seen, people go from not really knowing anything about budgeting or numbers or anything, and they slowly start to, maybe they don't love it like us kind of nerdy accounting people, but they appreciate it, right? They can say, okay, I see why we need this information. It is really important. It is helping us grow, make better decisions and things like that. So I think that's the end goal. So it really has to be a matter of how you feel about it and, where you're ready to go. On that journey.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the episode here. I think we've covered a lot of really great information to help you understand one, the difference between the different roles. I know that's kind of one of the big questions that we get on a regular basis, and understanding when it's time to start looking at bringing somebody on, and then the direct benefits that you can see from working with a controller or a CFO. And I'd encourage all of our listeners to go back. We have 155 episodes now at this point of really great content. You can always go back and, catch the episodes that you may have missed, or maybe you're having a specific struggle now with cash flow, with budgeting, with client avatars. I mean, we've covered so many topics now at this point. It's a great resource for you to check that out. So Go back through our episodes. We also have some really great resources on our website as well, like templates for cash flow, strategic budgeting, workbooks to define your vision, establish goals, all kinds of things. So, as always, we're here to help, and we strive to provide that educational content and free resources to help you do as much as you can on your own. And then we're here to support you beyond that as well. So if you're interested in getting a discovery call, we are here for that as well. You can reach that at pjscpas.com/contact. And I think that's it. It's the end of the episode. Do you have anything else to add, Jaime?
I don't think I do.
All
If
right.
you're not ready to hire someone, at least do research, listen to podcasts, use those free resources, start there for sure.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us. Keep that momentum going, and we will see you next time.